There's one creature that represents sex, death, and all things macabre. Of course, I'm talking about the vampire. Today I'm going to persuade you why vampires are the best villain in cinema. This is a graph from BoxOfficeMojo.com. It shows how much a vampire-oriented movie has made since 1973. As you can see, in the total all movies, that's at least $3 billion. That's a lot of money. So who here has seen a vampire movie within the last year? Awesome, all of us. So they're obviously pretty popular. So here are the points I'm going to go over today. Vampires are very flexible as characters. Vampires are shaped by our culture, and vampires push societal norms. Vampires are extremely moldable. Vampires have different roles depending on the storytellers. In movies, writers can change the role to a vampire so that it creates new lore for the movie. For example, in Twilight, all the vampires have different powers. However, in The Strain, the vampires throw up worms onto their victim instead of biting them. Vampires resonate with us because we shape them around our fears. One of the first vampire films, Nosferatu, has been seen by many as an allegory for anti-Semitism. UncannyFandom.com says, Nosferatu was created in 1922 before the Second World War, adopting the issues and fears associated with the time. So, Nosferatu is from Romania, Eastern Europe. So, many Jewish immigrants were from Eastern Europe, and they were moving over to the more Western countries. And Nosferatu moved over to London, and that's why it's an allegory for xenophobia. Moreover, ABC.net makes another great point. For example, in the 1980s, during the AIDS epidemic, there was a spike in popularity of vampire films. Then, there's the 1974 The Dead of Night. This movie is about a young man who dies in Vietnam but comes back as a lifeless version of himself. He also needs blood to survive. This is obviously a metaphor for PTSD. Vampires aren't only shaped by our society, but they also push societal norms. In 1936, Dracula's Daughter premiered, and it was laced with homosexual undertones. Vice supports my main point by saying, we even watch as she seeks a cure for her vampirism, a not so subtle nod to homosexuality as a mental illness. In fact, the first black horror movie is Blackula, in 1972. This was a very progressive film for the time. Tanana Reeve-Dew, a black activist, said, to see Blackula stand up to the police was very empowering. Another good example of homosexuality in vampire films is 1994's Interview with the Vampire. The writer of the original novel even confirms it on I09 by saying, sure, I never thought of it that way, but they were the first vampire same-sex couple. These are some things I want you to consider. Vampires are a much more flexible villain than, say, a werewolf. Vampires are shaped to our cultural fears, and vampires push what is acceptable in our culture. Vampires are an iconic figures that have been adapted into multiple movies. Vampires are the best villain because they mold to our fears, and for this reason, I believe that they're here to stay.